السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم، والحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على أشرف المرسلين، وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. يطيب لأسرة المعهد العالمي لحوزة القرآن والعلوم الإسلامية تقديم دورة التطبيقات الحاسوبية في خدمة القرآن الكريم والعلوم الإسلامية، والتي أعطينا منها 3 محاضرات، واليوم سوف تكون المحاضرة الرابعة للدكتور وليد قادوس. وكانت المحاضرة الأولى كانت لمهندس محمد خير حول أدوات البحث الذكي في القرآن الكريم. والمحاضرة الثانية قدمها المهندس أنس أبو اللبن حول ترتيل ميمورايز قرآن. والدورة الثالثة قدمها الدكتور سعد الله أحراري حول تطبيقات مؤسسة قاف الإسلامية. والمحاضرة اليوم سيقدمها الدكتور وليد قادوس حول أنصاري تشات، وهي تطورات في مساعدات الذكاء الاصطناعي لتعزيز فهم القرآن الكريم. والمحاضرة القادمة ستكون يوم السبت القادم 23/8/2025. يقدمها الأساتذة الدكتور صبحي حمادي والدكتور محمد حميد حول تطبيق حاسوبي لقواعد وأصول التلاوة والتجويد للقرآن الكريم. وفي هذا المساء المبارك يقدم الدكتور محمد وليد قادوس المحاضرة الرابعة في دورة التطبيقات الحاسوبية في خدمة القرآن الكريم والعلوم الإسلامية، وهي بعنوان التطورات في مساعدات الذكاء الاصطناعي لتعزيز فهم القرآن الكريم. ويناقش الدكتور وليد قادوس إطلاق أنصاري شات 3، النسخة الأحدث من التطبيق الذي ناقشه سابقا، ويتحدث عن كيفية تحسين جودة الإجابات من خلال التطورات في الاستشهادات والمراجع، والتوليد المعزز بالاسترجاع راج، ونوافذ السياق الأوسع، وكيفية استخدام أفراد المجتمع له، وما يحمله المستقبل، بما في ذلك عروض توضيحية لكيفية استخدامه لتحسين البحث والتعليم. والدكتور محمد وليد قادوس هو كبير العلماء في ستوك آب، ومؤسس مشروع الأنصاري، رائد في تطبيقات الذكاء الاصطناعي التي تخدم الإنسانية مع التركيز بشكل خاص على المجتمع المسلم، بخبرته في القيادة الهندسية في كانفا واني سكيل واوبر وجوجل. يحمل خبرة تقنية عميقة في تقاطع الذكاء الاصطناعي والمعرفة الإسلامية. أصبح أنصاري تشات المنتج الرئيسي لمشروع الأنصاري، واحدا من مساعدات الذكاء الاصطناعي الإسلامية الرائدة في العالم. نبدأ عن الدكتور وليد باللغة الإنجليزية، لأن هذه المحاضرة ستكون باللغة الإنجليزية. كذلك نعتذر عن تقديم الترجمة الحية، وذلك بسبب أعطال تقنية في تغيير الابلكيشن التي كنا نعتمد عليها سابقا، وإن شاء الله سنطورها في مؤتمر إيمان والمحاضرات القادمة إن شاء الله. Dr. Waleed Kadous is introducing Ansari.chat 3, the newest version of the application. He explains the key improvements, including better citations, stronger referencing, retrieval augmented generation, and larger context windows. These features make the answers more accurate and reliable. He also shows how people in the community are already using the tool in different ways. Finally, he looks ahead to the future and demonstrates how Ansari Chat 3 can support research and education. Dr. Muhammad Waleed Qadous is the chief scientist at AppStock and founder of the Ansari project, pioneering AI applications that serve humanity with particular focus on the Muslim community. With engineering leadership experience at Canva, Anscale, Uber, and Google, he brings deep technical expertise to the intersection of AI and Islamic knowledge. The Ansari project flagship, Ansari.chat, has become one of the world's leading Islamic AI assistant. Now we will present Dr. Waleed Qados, and we will give him the mic to speak to us in his interesting talk, and we are looking forward for this talk. Please, Dr. Qados, you are welcome, and start your
جزاكم الله
presentation.
خير. بسم الله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. أولا أعتذر وأتأسف لعدم تمكيني في اللغة العربية، خصوصا في هذه المواد التي هي يعني صعب التكلم عنها والتحدثات، فسامحوني. سأعطي المحاضرة باللغة الإنجليزية ولكن يمكنني أن أجاوب على الأسئلة الذي منكم باللغة العربية إن شاء الله. So today I'll be talking to you about advances in Ansari and how we're using some of the advances that have happened in AI in the last 12 months, 18 months to make Ansari a better system. And subhanAllah, the last time I spoke about Ansari, it was at the Islamic conference in 2023 that Quran Computing organized. May Allah bless all of the organizers for that event. And so what I want to do is update you on the progress since then, because there have been a lot of updates. So I'll just start by, inshallah, giving you a reminder about Ansari.chat and its history. I'll do a deep dive into the features that are present in the new version of Ansari. And then I'll share, I think, a very interesting topic for us as practitioners in AI is when we create something like Ansari, where people can come in and ask Islamic questions and have them answered. What do they use it for? And finally, I just want to share some observations on the future and show you some of the work that has literally finished in the last week on Ansari in terms of the model context protocol. And I'll talk a little bit more about that. And then inshallah, we'll have conclusion and lessons learned, and then inshallah, time for questions and answers. So the Ansari project started in June 2023. And initially it was very focused on Ansari.chat. If you haven't tried Ansari.chat, it's at Ansari.chat on the web. And as we worked on it, we started to realize that there was more that could be done with AI and Islam. And so we broadened the agenda beyond Ansari.chat. And our mission at Ansari Project is really about how we can use the most advanced AI available to assist Islam and to assist the Muslim Ummah. And especially what we've noticed in the past is that often when the Muslim community comes across a new technology, first they condemn it, and then there's debates for about 10 to 20 years. And then finally we embrace it, and we've lost all of that time. So if you think about social networks, you think about satellite television, you think about radio, you think about TV, all of those times we basically first condemn the technology, then argue about it for 20 years, and then finally decide, oh, this is a great thing. And now if you look at the internet, Facebook, Meta, but by then we've missed the boat. And I think what's happened in Gaza has been a great, like a reminder of what happens on things like social network when we miss out, because then we can be prevented from getting our message out there. The goal of these projects has never been about numbers. It's really about pushing the limits and about doing it in an open source way. So everything that the Ansari project has done has been open sourced. You can download it and run in your own instance of Ansari. You can modify it for your application. We also have even our evaluation mechanisms are open source. And we really think this has led to a lot of the adoption. So originally Ansari.chat, the first version was in October 2023. And it was a very, very simple system. Basically, it was one question. We modified the system prompt a bit. There was no history, but we did have good language support. And then in October 2024, we released Ansari.chat 2. And this was a big enhancement. It had, you could do retrieval augmented generation over Islamic sources. And that included the Quran, the Hadith, and the Kuwaiti Awqaf Fiqh of Encyclopedia of Islamic Fiqh, Mawsu'at al-Fiqh al-Islami from the Kuwaiti Awqaf. We added accounts so people could have a history of what they've done and saved conversations. And not only that, we gave thumbs up, thumbs down. You could share the content with other people. So this was a big step forward from the previous version. I think the most important aspect of it was the introduction of retrieval augmented generation, because that really helped us to reduce the hallucinations and give us confidence in the answers that Ansari was given. And so the overall architecture of Ansari is that you have a front end, and increasingly now we also have mobile applications. You have a back end, and the things that make it Ansari are the combination of the system prompt and the tools that are available. And these tools are what actually do the retrieval augmented generation. So right now, this shows 2 tools that we were using at the original time. Now we're up to 4 tools or 4 sources of information. And so this is the overall architecture, and it's a typical example of a retrieval augmented generation application. And that is an application that doesn't just rely on the large language model to remember. It actually first looks up the information and provides the information as context to the large language model. So one way to think about it is normal AI without retrieval augmented generation is like a brain. But like a brain, it has all of the issues with misremembering and recall and all of those things. And so what we do when we use retrieval augmented generation is like we're putting a library next to the brain and telling the brain, before you say anything, first check these sources and then construct your answer after you've read this material. And that really has helped us to prevent the chances of hallucination or incorrect conclusions being reached. So I want to give you some examples of the ways that people are using Ansari and doing some very interesting things. So what you can do is you can Islamize the stories. You can write 10 trivia questions. People ask questions like, does swallowing spit void your fasting? So one of my favorite stories was one of my nieces was in a class at an Islamic school, and at a weekend Islamic school. And unfortunately, the teacher was not fully qualified. So she said, for example, that if you swallow your spit during Ramadan, it will void your fast. And the niece just kind of did a quick search on Ansari, went and showed it to the teacher and said, "Are you sure about this?" to prevent that issue. You can use it for morphology. You can use it in very situational things, like I'm here at Marwa. What is the dua I should make at Marwa? And you've heard of people using it in Hajj and more. I'm just going to pause here and make sure that everything's okay. You can hear me fine. The slides are visible, etc.
Yeah, it's all great. Thank you. Yeah.
Excellent. So, as I mentioned earlier, I think our community is not always super responsive to new technologies. But I think to have the technologies, Ansari has been very important in terms of opening up and exploring what AI and Islam can do together. And I think that one of the things that has contributed to that success is really our openness from day one. You can read, you can literally look at the system prompt that we have. You can look at, the services that everything that we do, we try to be as open as it's up. And that's really allowed us, for example, to get volunteers who have stepped up. And in fact, the lead on Ansari Project 3 was not me. It was really a brother called Amr Sayed, who really took the lead and added new experiences because he's far more experienced with mobile development than I was. And he's the one who really got the project up and running. So now I want to take a moment to do a deep dive into features. So I just want to pull up Ansari now just to kind of show you what it looks like. And I'm going to enlarge it a little bit so we can see. So over here, you can see that we have topics that we've saved. For example, I'm asking a question here about, is there any tafsir bil-ma'thur around Surah Al-Duha, right? And so what you can see now is it's basically doing a search of the Encyclopedia of Quranic interpretations based on narrations. And it's saying everything about it, the timing, when it was revealed. And then it gives us passages here from the Encyclopedia of Quranic interpretation with references, the pages, etc. And also here you can see that it's translating it. So this book, the fiqh, the Encyclopedia of Fiqh, has not been translated into English, and we haven't translated it into English. But what we can do is, if we find a passage that's useful from that book, we can then translate just that particular passage. And so you can see it's got an extensive list of citations here. I think this is one of the key features. Down here you can see the facilities for copying, thumbs up, thumbs down. So if I want to give this a thumbs up, we can explain why we gave the rating.
Could you zoom in a little bit if possible?
Sure.
The font is very small, that's all. Yeah.
Is that any better? Yes, okay.
A little better,
Hopefully
yeah.
that's, yeah, okay.
Yeah, that's much better.
So you can see the features here. And you can also share the entire thread. So, maybe we have a topic here. We can create a new chat and discuss, any topic. Of course, you can also click on these sources of information. But just to show you some of the other, capabilities we have, we could ask a question, what is the Islamic ruling on organ donation. And the point here is not that this thing is just going to make up an answer, but as we'll see, it will then go and search on Mawsu' al-Fiqhiyya, and it will kind of find all of the sources and can compose its answer. And sometimes it takes a while because it's searching multiple documents. So, you can see here that the majority position, all of the particular information, and so on. So, and then it would provide the citations at the bottom for its position, right? And then, so as you can see, it will then provide the citations, the encyclopedia, and the citation to the Encyclopedia of Islamic Jurisprudence, right? So that's a quick walkthrough of Ansari and the capabilities that we have. So now let's go through each of the different features that we added in Ansari v3. And the first thing is that we massively expanded the availability. Initially, Ansari was just available on the web, but it's now available on the web, WhatsApp, Android, and iOS. So you can just search for Ansari.chat in the app stores and it will be available to you. And so hopefully that gives us an increase in the number of places where people can use Ansari. And then the other thing that we've added, again, due to a volunteer, not to me doing it, was he said, our Ummah uses WhatsApp a lot. What if we were to make Ansari available on WhatsApp? And so if you send a message to this number, Ansari will reply with answers to your questions. And if you are if you're logged in, you get one history with your account across web, iOS, and Android. I think the second most important feature is really the effort that we put into reducing hallucinations. Not that we were seeing a lot of hallucinations before, but we added one particular source, and you'll see what drove that choice is really the set of questions that people were asking. And we massively improved the quality of the answers that we produced. And again, I think a very important feature, in fact, for me, one of the flagship features was this use of citations. So that now, whenever it answers a question, it not only gives you the answer to the question, it says, this is the hadith, this is the Quranic ayah, this is the section of this particular book that answers that particular questions. And the vast majority of answers now include citations, on the order of 65%. So no matter what the topic you ask is, it's a 65%. When you're asking about something like the Quran, it's much closer to 90% because it's very clear when you're asking about the Quran that you should be looking for sources of information there. And so this has really helped us in terms of connecting the hadith. We don't have issues with made up hadith or made up ayahs that some of the other systems, if you just were to use ChatGPT, it sometimes either makes up hadith itself or it can make up the reference to the hadith. And this is a much more concrete system for us to be able to do that. As I mentioned earlier, we had a very good collaboration with a team called Usul.ai. If you haven't seen Usul.ai, it is a comprehensive set of thousands of Islamic books with a starting AI search mechanism. And they added that in the last few months. But it's definitely worth looking at that. But what we chose to do there, and just like when we chose the Encyclopedia of Islamic Fiqh, we deliberately chose a source that was ecumenical. It was not associated, anything within the mainstream Sunni strands. It was something that we felt was within scope, and we didn't want to pick within that scope of mainstream Islam any of the particular madhabs or perspectives or anything like that. So again, that's what led to us choosing that for the first thing we add for tafsir, that it should be tafsir bil ma'thur, right? There's no, that's more of an encyclopedic type of source of information. So as I mentioned, we also spent a lot of time optimizing the mobile experience. And one thing that we've been very concerned about is it's one thing to say that you don't have errors, but it's another thing to actually test it. So together with Ansari v2, we also released what we call Batik. And Batik is a set of 100 multiple choice Islamic questions that are based on real questions that the users asked. And they have different topics like Islamic history, tajweed, Quran, etc., etc. And this gave us a way to test the quality of the system. And what we can see is that, if you were to use something like the old version of GPT 3.5, its error rate on this was, its success rate was only about 77%. When GPT-4 came out, it got a little bit higher, and Ansari v2 was very similar to GPT-4's rate. But with the release of Ansari v3, we are now hitting 100% accuracy on Batik. And so now the problem is Batik is too easy for us to assess whether it's good or not. But what we've done is we've also made Batik available in human form. And if you go to docs.ansari.chat and you go to the validation section, you can actually do the test. Maybe I can show you folks that. And you can decide whether the questions are too hard or not. So let's just have a look at that. So just so you can get a flavor of this. So, how's the quiz? This is an example of some of the questions.
Yeah.
Right.
If you could zoom in. Yeah, thank you.
Yes, yes. So you can try this out. Some of the questions are easy, but some of them are much harder. Questions about history, the Quran interpretation, and so on. So, you can try this yourself and see what the score is like and see if you think that the test is easy. My intuition is most Muslims would get on the order of 70 to 80% on this test. And that's in part because we're taking advantage of the powers of AI, right? Like if you ask a human, how many times is coral mentioned in the Quran? That's not something that a human can do easily, but it is something that AI can do very easily. So hopefully this gives you an impression of what we're doing to test and make sure that these systems are very capable. So I think, as you saw, we also added capabilities for conversation sharing, and we also added capability for user feedback. And we've already collected about 885 responses for analysis. We don't try to, although it's noted, we'll try to do it and make sure that it's as anonymous as possible. But as well as that, another thing that we worked on was we worked a lot on the infrastructure. So we moved across from MySQL to MongoDB. We redid our CI/CD pipeline so we could be confident. And we also did a lot of work on infrastructure. So with that, I want to move on to the second part of my talk, which is to do an analysis on how people have been using Ansari and the different applications and things that they've been using Ansari for. And so let's dive into that, inshallah. So basically what we did is at my last presentation at the Quran Computing Conference, we were looking at a different sample period that was like from 2023. And so we analyzed the performance there, and we did a similar performance here for the first 3 months since Ansari v3 was launched. You're the first people to see this data, still double checking everything. So some of the numbers may not be quite right, but let's go through it anyway, inshallah. So the first one is about how much Ansari is used. And the good news is we've seen a pretty large increase in the amount of use that Ansari gets. Basically Ansari v3 is about, in the last about 18 months, we've added about 8.5 times as many users. Now, you could argue that in absolute terms, this is not a huge amount. 250 conversations a day is not that much. And that's a valid point, and that's something that we think about a lot, right? Like, if you divide 250 by 2 billion, the number of Muslims in the world, that's nowhere near enough. And we realize that, and we think a lot about that, and that's something that we pay attention to. As I mentioned earlier, 65% of replies now have citations in them. And that is evidence to us of the improvement and the importance of citation. And we know that we could skip the citations if we wanted to, but it's about setting a standard for Islamic answers. And now if anyone builds a new AI, it is our hope that people will ask them, well, Ansari has citations. Do you have citations? What are you doing to ground your answers in in the sources of Islam, right? And as I mentioned, it depends on the topics. So the next three things that, we'll talk a little bit about, um, um, you know, um, um, there's tools that we use and, go through those. Uh, so unfortunately, the graphic seems to have disappeared. Uh, but roughly speaking, a lot of the threads utilize the tools for search. And the one that's used the most is actually the Encyclopedia of Islamic Fiqh, consistent with what I said earlier. That's one of the most important topics and why we added. And then we'll see that they also use the Quran search and Hadith search a lot. What you'll also see is that almost always it will do a Quran search or a Hadith search, even if the question is not about Quran and Hadith. So we see a lot of tool usage. So when we look at, what are the types of questions that people ask, and this is, let's have we had a look at, about 22,000 threads that we've had in the last 3 months, and the number one by far is questions like around fiqh. And then the other one is a little bit more general. It's about how do I apply Islam in my life, or what is there an Islamic philosophy on a particular topic? And then the third topic, and that's the one that I think most of us here are most interesting about, is things like the about the Quran. And so there's other topics as well that we cover. So if we look at the distribution of the topics, you can see again that fiqh is a very dominant topic, but that Quran is also a very important topic that people ask questions about. And one that I find a little bit interesting is the khutbah question, that people do sometimes come in and ask, please help prepare a khutbah for me. And you know, I know that sounds crazy, but with the citations, if you come to a topic, the khutbahs it generates are actually not bad. I would not suggest that anybody ever tried to present a khutbah written by Ansari, but at least it can give you inspiration. It can help you with the research for the topics, and you should try it. So one thing that I wanted to especially share with this group is a deep dive into what are the questions about that people ask about the Quran. And again, this is about 10% of the questions that people ask. But remember, this isn't, like when people ask other general questions like, how should I distribute inheritance? We also do Quran searches, even though that's not explicitly. So these are the questions specifically asked about the Quran. So these are questions that the most typical is people wanting to understand tafsir, like finding verses, doing tafsir of the verses, asking how the Quran was preserved, or those types of general questions, and then some people asking for tips about memorization. So we can see here, this is the rough distribution. It's like, help me find particular verses of the Quran. And then the second most important is people seeking tafsir. And the good thing is that this is very well aligned with the sources that we have chosen to focus on. I think one very valid question that people have about Ansari is, why do you limit it to just 4 sources? And it's because we want to make sure that what we offer is high quality, and we've been very selective with the sources that we've used. But of course, in the future, we could add more sources. And there are several of the projects that Ansari inspired. And I'll talk about one in particular called tanyalaustaz.com, which is based in Malaysia. And they've added like dozens of sources and basically to within the Ansari framework. But still, it still scales, but it's just we have to be very selective about the information that we put in. And in terms of the languages that people use, English is by far the dominant language, but there's a significant minority of Arabic usage, on the order of about 10% of the usage is in Arabic. So one of the things that we've tried to do is uh, minimize, we've done an analysis, and when I do this data analysis that I just shared with you, and if we make certain information available, one thing we try to do is to filter out any PII data. So what we do is we rank every thread with a PII sensitivity rating. And so what we do is we're very careful about that to make sure that, before we do any of these analyses that we're talking about, is that we filter out any privacy information. So earlier on, I mentioned that we have a lot of user feedback, and generally the feedback has been very positive. So in terms of thumbs up, thumbs down, it's about 84% thumbs up and about 16% thumbs down. So, for every one person who's unhappy with Ansari, approximately 6 people are happy. And inshallah, that's an indication that we're doing something useful. And as I said, those are the numbers. But what drives those particular values? And I think one of the comments that we keep seeing is people really like the clarity of answers and the ability of large language models to customize the clarity. So, as I mentioned earlier, one of the things people like to do is to target the information. So, my son likes to use Ansari, and he will say, "Give me a quiz of Islamic questions suitable for a 10-year-old." Um, and then it will tailor the questions in terms of their difficulty for him. Whereas if you asked it for difficulty for like a graduate of Islamic studies, the complexity of the questions it would give is difficult. Or say you were asking it to explain qadr to you, right? Again, there's different levels of explanation you can give of complex questions like that. Now you can ask whether it's legitimate to ask an AI about understanding qadr, but I can assure you that the youth in our community are asking that question. And if they're not asking it on Ansari, they're asking it on something like ChatGPT or Claude or Gemini. And those sources are not necessarily interested in framing things in an Islamic framework. And so I think it's very important that we realize that this ability to tailor the information and make sure that it's set in an Islamic context is very, very valuable. So what I wanted to do is I wanted to give you folks a demo of some of the very new work that we're doing and to share some of the thoughts and experiences that we've had there. And this is very new work. So, these demos may or may not work. We'll see, inshallah. But I want to talk to you a little bit about MCP. So MCP is something called the Model Context Protocol. And the Model Context Protocol allows you to plug in tools into different AIs and use them for them to use one another. So the way it works is that you have a server that provides a certain capability. So for example, you might have a Google Calendar MCP server. And what that allows you to do is it allows your normal AI, the one that you use every day, like say Claude, to get access to your calendar. And so now, normally if you were to ask a question like, am I busy on Saturday? It has no way of answering that. But now what happens is when you say, am I busy on Saturday? It goes, oh, that's a calendar inquiry. And so then it will go off and ask the Google Calendar MCP service, get me his calendar on Saturday so I can see if it's busy or not. So it's an open standard that has like really proliferated. And now you have big companies like Google, of course, adopting the MCP standard. And I think it's very, very interesting. So one of the concerns and one of the problems that we have with Ansari is that retention is a problem. And basically what happens is people hear about Ansari, they'll come in, they'll ask a few questions on Ansari, and they'll be like, oh, Nick, this is very useful. And then they'll go about their daily business. And then they'll forget about Ansari because, well, we all live busy lives, and who would, they're probably using another AI as their main AI. And so what we've seen in the particular case that's concerning for us is when the users of Ansari, probably only 10% of our registered users use us weekly. And there's a very definite drop-off over time. So you'll use Ansari a bit excited at the beginning, and then over time it drops off. And the reason for that, when I used to work at Google, Larry Page, the founder, always used to talk about the importance of the toothbrush test. And he says, if you want to really build great products, what you need to do is build something that people would use twice a day, right? So of course, as Muslims, we need to have the siwak test, but the idea there is regular usage. And this is why I think MCP is a very interesting possibility for us to use. And so what we've done is we've just recently finished an MCP server for Ansari. And so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to switch to Claude. Let me just see if I can get Claude up and running. And this is just regular Claude. This is Claude desktop, right? But you'll see if I click here, and I'll enlarge this so everyone can see it. There's a list of tools that are available to Claude that people have set up over time. And what happened is we now have a special tool here for Ansari. So I can click on this, and it tells you that what Ansari specializes in is answering Islamic questions. Now, this is just the point to make is this is not Ansari. The person does not come to Ansari.chat. They go to Claude.ai or whatever. And so the idea is, let's say that you're a normal user and you use Claude as your daily driver, daily driver. It's the AI that you use every day. And so we can see here that, this is just like, this is what you ask, like, this is the same AI would ask, like, what's the latest news in AI for? But what we can do is, if we now, and I can ask a live question, but if I now search for something like, how many times are corals mentioned in the Quran? Instead of it just searching the web for that information, what happens is it will then consult Ansari. Sorry, let me find the other one. Sorry, this one, right? So if you ask how many times is coral mentioned in the Quran, it will then come and ask Ansari. And as we can see here, Ansari is the one that gives the reply. And so now it's like Ansari has become the expert that Claude refers to when it's looking to answer Islamic questions. So afterwards, we get the answer and it notes that it came from Ansari.chat. And a similar thing would be like in Islamic views on organ donation, right? We can see here that it's, if we ask the question, what is the Islamic opinion on organ donation? It will then create an answer that's coming from Ansari with citations, current opinions, everything else, right? So, let me just give a live demo. Maybe someone from the audience has a topic we can check here within the Islamic space. Maybe just something simple. I mean, we could ask anything, but any questions
Feel
from
free
the
to
audience?
open the microphone if أي شخص يقترح topic يعني أو موضوع.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله.
وعليكم السلام، تفضلي.
لو تكلمنا عن التطوع volunteerism,
Yeah.
if you could ask please and see what kind of answers I'm going to get.
Yeah.
Thank you. شكرا.
Okay. So again, if we ask a question like this, Claude will think about it for a moment. And the fact that it's asking an Islamic question will cause it now to defer to Ansari to answer that particular question. And right now it's doing the search, and sometimes these searches take a while, again, because we are hitting multiple sources and trying to find the most relevant information. And hopefully this works. But Jazakumullah khair, sister, for asking the question. Okay. We'll see. We'll come back to that in a second.
Is this, can I ask, is this a tool that is only this MCP server is only known to cloud, or do other search engines are aware of it as well and can access it?
Yes. So what's happened is that MCP was originally proposed by a company called Anthropic. That's the company behind Quran, behind Claude. And then OpenAI adopted it, Google adopted it, and all of a sudden it's become very much a standard across the entire industry. So now when you look at a new product, one of the questions, if you want it to work with AI, is does it come with its own MCP server? And now there are official MCP services that are becoming available. So if I go to my settings here, and I go to connectors, these are all different companies and I add, browse connectors. You can see these are all the different companies right now that have official MCP servers that are built into Claude. So Claude is definitely the one that's most commonly used. So again, you can see the answers here. It has pulled out the Quranic verses, the prophetic guidance, and so on. And in this particular case, it didn't surface the citations, and this is because it's very new. But you can see that the Ansari answer, had definitely lots of citations, right? In fact, it has, 12 different citations for where to, to find all of the different information. Yep. So yeah, that's an answer on that question. So it's becoming very much a very common standard. All right. And then the second demo that I wanted to show you first.
Sorry, I just wanted to follow up. Is the Ansari service itself available on like Gemini or other AI search engines?
Yes. So it is not yet available on Gemini or on ChatGPT. Right now, Claude is the leading company when it comes to MCP.
Okay.
But definitely within the next 6 months, those services will have support for MCP. And so you'll just go to like OpenAI and you'll say, I want to add Ansari to my list of tools. And you click on a button, and then from then on, if it's an Islamic question, it will ask Ansari for the answer to that question. So that's the plan there. But I really want to show you folks the power of this particular feature, because I think one of the future things that I keep thinking about with Ansari is a very reactive way of talking to things. You have a question, you come to Ansari, you ask the question. But is there a way that we can invert that process where Ansari becomes an active learning tool? And this is really where I'm putting the effort in at the moment. And one of the things that the big AI companies, all three of them, have recently added guided learning systems. So I want to show you like a very quick prototype that I built. Let me just make sure that I have the right one here. Yes. So here's an example of a conversation that I had. And then what Claude has done is it has added tools that make it possible to create artifacts and so on that allow you to add some capabilities. So the exciting thing for me is now by making Ansari available as an MCP server, it can now become part of this ecosystem. And you can say something like, please construct for me a learning journal so I can learn from Surah Al-Fatiha. And what it does is it takes the information that Ansari provides, right? So in this particular case, Ansari is thinking a lot about, what are the names of Surah Al-Fatiha, the prophetic authentication, all of the references to it and so on, right? So it's getting a lot of material. It's combining with the capabilities that Claude has, and it's constructing this application called the Fatiha Learning Journal. And what you folks can see, and now the amazing thing is I can just hit publish here, and this is going to be available on the web. But let me just pull this over so you folks can see, the type of learning journal that is created, right? You can see that it's has a discussion of the names. Then goes verse through verse of the Fatiha, and then asks people, what are your reflections on this ayah, to get them to do more than just read and to encourage reflection, right? There's the themes right here. So it has talks about the core themes in Surah Al-Fatiha and what you're doing on each. And there's like my progress, and then you can basically make sure that you're progressing and so on. And then finally, there's daily practice. So there's, you can but you can see that what it's doing here is taking the material that Ansari has and using it to construct an educational program that the user can experience. And this is something that I think is extremely interesting. Now, as I said, let's say that you constructed a tool like this. Once you hit published here, this is now a normal URL that you can go to any web browser, and anybody in the world can now access this particular artifact and use it. So this is kind of the power of bringing something like Ansari into an ecosystem. If we wanted to build a learning tool like this ourselves, it'd be very hard. I can see someone has raised their hand.
Yes, Dr. Khader, please. Go ahead.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
وعليكم
Thank
السلام
you very much, Dr. Kadous. It was very enlightening lecture. I'd like to talk about the future of AI for Muslims. I would just like to mention few aims which AI should take account so that in the future addition, modification to Ansari and to other AI systems.
All right. Brother Khidr or Dr. Khidr, just let me finish my presentation, inshallah, and it'll be the first question I answer, just so that we can wrap this up. And that's a very, very big topic, and it's a very, very, very genuine topic. So we'll come back to you, inshallah. So in conclusion, what we can see is Ansari is meeting a need in the community. The fact that, we've seen Ansari grow by 8.5 times is an indication to us that there is this need in the community. Also, that people have a lot of curiosity, especially about fiqh, but also the Quran. And in particular, the things that they're interested in understanding when it comes to the Quran is finding parts of the Quran with the appropriate information in them, and also understanding the tafsir of the verses. We can see that also that adding sources to the Islamic, to Ansari has been incredibly helpful and very important for improving the quality of the answers. And we see that users have responded to this with, I would say, like, overwhelmingly positive feedback, even though there are occasional errors that Ansari produces in terms of the way that it extracts things. And finally, that I think it's a very, very exciting time in terms of what's coming next. And we are looking at multiple solutions for Ansari to be made accessible in ways that it hasn't. We've already expanded the way that Ansari is accessible beyond just a web page to WhatsApp, iOS, Android. And we've also seen a lot of progress in terms of using it as part of an MCP service. And one of the particular areas that I'm really looking forward to expanding with Ansari, and one that I think we should look at specifically using AI, is highly personalized education and learning. To go beyond the reactive use of AI for answering people's question, to becoming a proactive tool for education and learning about Islam. So Jazakumullah khairan. Thank you so much.
What about introducing Islam to non-Muslims?
Yes. So that's a very good question. And we We've even looked at some collaborations with groups in the UK about that. And there's nothing Muslim specific about this, right? Many non-Muslims might want to come to Ansari already. We know that because of the shape of the questions that we get. It's a smaller fraction, like only a few percent. It's not a huge amount. But I'm excited that anyone who wanted to learn about Islam from an authentic source could just use Ansari as an MCP server and start to get their questions. But before we finish, I just wanted to especially thank all of the people that have contributed to Ansari in various ways. Ansari is, by its nature, is an open source project. I'm just the coordinator, really. And it's really contributions from other groups and us building. And some of the folks listed here are like previous speakers at your event. Anas Abu Laban has been like a very strong advisor to us. But there are also, the founders of many of the different organizations. So if you have any questions, if you want to try it, there's the website, Ansari.chat. And like I said, we're open source. And if you need to just drop me an email, it's hi@waleed.dk, and I'd love to talk to you. Shukran, barakallah fikum, and thank you
شكرا
very much.
جزيلا. شكرا جزيلا دكتور وليد، بارك الله فيك. ما شاء الله، يعني عمل ممتاز جدا. Really thankful for all your efforts and diligence about growth of Ansari and the process of establishing such a important tool as vital as that we can have trust in its development and in its resources that it uses. So thankful for that. I think we can take a few questions. I think maybe if you want to go back to the Dr. Khadar's question
Yes.
about
I don't think Dr. Khadr finished. So Dr. Khadr,
yeah,
if you'd like to
Dr.
finish.
Khader, if you want to recap or finish your question one more time, please. Dr. Khader, you might want to open the mic. Yeah. Yes, go ahead.
Yes. Well, actually, we should think about long-term improvement to the use of AI by Muslims. Now, ultimately, we want Muslims, when they interrogate with Islamic AI system, to get the Islamic solution to any problem they face. For example, say about weather problem in the world. This is an international problem. But what we want is to give the Islamic solution to such a problem, and so on.
Yeah.
On the opposite side, non-Muslims, when they ask about Islam, they should get answers which satisfies their queries. Now, as well, interrogating the system should simulate the great authors in Islam. For example, you may ask as if you are getting answers from Imam Shafi'i, for example, or Imam Ghazali.
Yep.
So simulation of the leaders of Islamic thought should, in a way, be simulated in such systems.
Jazakumullah khair. Okay, so let's take each of those questions in turn. The first question about making answers available to Muslims. I think for me that's the next evolution, and that's why Ansari being available over MCP is such an important step. And I really wanted to be part of the discussion because like MCP is very, very well known within the research, within the AI community. but knowledge is spreading it out. And so that's one of the reasons that I wanted to get ahead of this curve, is to meet our users where they are. And like, again, you know, our usage is relatively small, hundreds of questions a day, right? But I am optimistic that by these types of integration, we can get further. There's another side of this project, which is ensuring that correct information is available in the AIs that people use. And there are some other brothers and sisters who are working on that. And there's more we can do with evaluation. So one of the things that we could do is we could build data sets that measure bias. And that's something that's kind of one of our back burner projects at the moment. But if someone wants to take, volunteer and help us build that type of data set and then do an eval of all of the different systems for bias, that would be something that would allow us to pressure existing AI providers to reduce the bias towards Islam. And, there is bias. And unfortunately, some of the newer models, the ones coming out of China have extreme biases in some ways. And I've written about that in my Medium post. As for non-Muslims getting correct information about Islam, I think that that's something that is also something we need to be concerned about. But it's not that very different from the existing systems that reducing the bias in the existing systems. And I think we're seeing a sea change in terms of openness to Islam. And as I mentioned, our hope is to provide more correct information. And then to your third question about providing simulations of other scholars, my personal opinion, and this is a personal opinion, is that does not feel appropriate to me, because when you simulate a person, you are saying, and if that simulation says something, it's very hard to disentangle. And yet we can get most of the benefits. So right now for Ansari, you can say what did Ibn Hazm say about music, right? And that's something you can ask today that gives you the benefit of the simulation without the artificiality and risks that come with it. And I'm not sure that anyone could answer the question, what would Ibn Hazm say about climate change, right? Like to assert that we can answer that question is at least beyond the checkability. And I think really when it comes to Islamic information, we want to stick to grounded information sources. And so that's why I'm a little reluctant to pursue that course of action. جزاكم الله خير.
شكرا جزيلا. أستاذة ضحى، تفضلي.
Assalamu alaikum.
وعليكم السلام.
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته.
Thank you for this invaluable lecture. It is so important, I think. And I want to ask few questions, if you permit me. What differentiates Ansari beside ChatGPT from the point of Quran? Does Ansari rely on reliable or depends on a reliable Quranic version? And the second question is, does Ansari chooses tajweed as a meter to describe and to talk about better than other programs or some ChatGPT or other applications? And I have a suggestion, if you permit me. Your lecture is so invaluable, but I suggest this same lecture to be repeated, but in Arabic, because it is rich of so important information. And thank you so much.
All right, Jazakumullah khair. All right, so let's look at the differences, inshallah, versus ChatGPT. I think the big difference is that we have the authentic sources to back us up, and that we also have a system prompt to direct it to answer questions in an Islamic way. Let me explain why each of those is important. The system prompt is very important because it sets the personality of the AI. So now if you go to, this is something you should check. If you go to ChatGPT and ask it, what does Islam say about LGBT issues? Or my friend has same-sex feelings. He's a Muslim. What should I do? You will see vastly different answers between Ansari and ChatGPT, right? That's because the system prompt in Ansari, we tell it to present an Islamic perspective on the answer of questions. And then the second thing is the sources that we use, right? If you're using ChatGPT and ask it, what are the interpretations of, Surah Al-Sajda, it will search the whole internet and get all of the information, written by non-Muslims, written by Muslims, written by kind of more out there, non-mainstream Islam, and it will present all of them. In this particular case, what it would do is it would focus on, tafsir bil-ma'thur sources and answer that particular source. And Ansari is told to kind of stick to modern sources stick to authentic sources. And so it results in a much better grounded answer. And I think the third difference is the citations. So Ansari will tell you, this is the chapter of Sahih Bukhari to look up, this is the hadith to look up, and so on. So I think those are the differences. In terms of tajweed, I don't think you'd see a huge difference between what ChatGPT and Ansari would say, because the principles of tajweed are fairly well understood, fairly well documented. If it might not be quite so good on the qira'at, but what we could do if tajweed was important is that we could add an authoritative source on tajweed that was aware of the different qira'at and so on. As for your suggestion, sister, the suggestion to give the same lecture in Arabic, I wish my Arabic was good enough. But one of my rules of thumb is the solution to any problem introduced by AI is more AI. So what we could do is, I could upload this to 11 labs. I could have it dub this in Arabic, I correct any errors, and then we see how it feels. And then, I think this is one of the things that I'm most excited about AI. When people tell me what are the different ways we can use AI to make the world better, I emphasize productivity, creativity, multilingual and multimodal capabilities, and knowledge research. I think I could follow up with brother Dr. Mohammed Khair and see if I can get like an Arabic dubbed version of this, or I would partner with someone else who, jointly we would present. And so Jazakumullah Khair for the suggestion, sister.
Thank you very much. And we apologize about, we did promise to provide this lecture as a live translation. We have developed a tool for that streams data through livekit.io. But unfortunately, their API changed and quite a bit since last year. And so I think we can do translation offline, inshallah, as well. So I'll connect with you and we'll figure it out and make sure that the lecture audio at the very least is provided in Arabic as well. Yeah. Thank you. Any other questions? I saw Dr. Ahmed Sharaf. You had Sharafuddin, you had a question.
ربنا يبارك في حضرتك والله. هو يعني الطلب اللي أشارت إليه سعادة الدكتورة يعني الحقيقة طلب جميل، لأن يعني مع السن والشوشرة اللي على النت وكده بيبقى المتابعة أصعب يعني. إنما المحاضرة طبعا قيمة جدا جدا، جزاه الله خيرا، وطبعا مجهود يعني عظيم، ربنا يكرمه ويبارك فيه وفي حضرتك. أنتم أصحاب الفضل، يعني فضل كبير علينا كلنا وعلى الأمة، فربنا يثبكم ويتقبل منا ومنكم يا رب. هو طبعا لما أشار لموضوع القراءات فده موضوع بحر آخر، يعني الواحد بيبقى حذر جدا جدا، بالذات لما بيبقى الحديث عن القرآن الكريم والتجويد والقراءات، بيبقى الواحد حذر جدا 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 يعني. ويمكن حضرتك كان ليا بحث من فترة عن يعني البيت فولز في استخدامات التقنيات الحاسوبية في مجال الدراسات القرآنية، إن في مشاكل كثيرة بتحدث. وفي يعني ساعات أحيانا الإنسان يعني من الحاسوبي المتمكن قد يعطي لهذه الأدوات التكنولوجية يعني دورا يفوق الواقع فعلا، وربما لا ينظر إلى الجانب السلبي أو الحاجات اللي هي يعني مش صحيحة في الموضوع يعني. يعني أنا تألمت لما كان في مؤتمر عالمي لدور الإفتاء عقد في مصر، وشاركت فيه دول عديدة في لجنة أو في هيئة اسمها هيئة الإفتاء العالمية. وكان العنوان أو الثيم بتاع هذا المؤتمر إن هو المفتي الراشد في عصر الذكاء الاصطناعي. وتألمت لما لقيت إن في ناس كتير بتتكلم وكأن يعني إحنا هنشيل المفتي ده خالص ونعمل السوفت وير هو بقى خلاص يعني عنده كل حاجة. يا جماعة مش كده، لا، الموضوع ما يمشيش كده أصلا. إنما
Yes. صحيح.
خطر هذا
صحيح.
الموضوع خطر.
Yeah, I was wondering, can you address the question around fatwa, or if people ask
Yes.
Ansari about fatwa, how does Ansari
Yes.
respond?
So I can understand, Jazakallah khair, Brother Ahmed. May Allah bless you and reward you and for your question. And I understand your concern about people relying on Ansari for iftar. Right now, it's not meant to be a replacement for iftar. And generally, the way that I would see it is, the reason I called it Ansari is it's meant to be a helper. It's not meant to be a replacement. We will never replace our imams. And we have a history of in our community of claiming that imams will be replaced, but they never are. When the internet came out, we said, oh, it's like Sheikh Google, and that will be the end of imams. When books became popular, it was like, well, that's the end of imams. And the thing is, we need our imams for more than this. And it's naive in the extreme to think that AI can replace that. My hope, inshallah, is that the AI becomes a tool for iftar that scholars use to do their research, so they can produce more accurate and more well-founded fatwas, right? And in two ways, right? So one is, there's fiqh al-waqa, right? Understanding the nature of the situation that we're in. And fatwa, it consists of those two parts, right? Understanding the context of the fatwa and understanding the Islamic connections with that context. So I think in both of those fronts, in terms of, say, finding hadith that are relevant, or, recently I was researching the connection between writing and AI. And for me to be able to say, okay, help me organize the hadith that exist about how the Prophet approached writing, that was a very useful tool. And in fact, some of our users are people, not muftis so much, but practical people trying to guide people. So my hope is that Ansari will become a tool that muftis use to help answer their questions. And I would resist the desire for us to replace and to trust these AIs with anything other than, I would not trust a qiyas that comes from AI, because that is about understanding that the depth of understanding required to make good qiyas is like beyond what these AIs are capable of. Now, having said that, they're getting better. But my hope is not that we keep thinking about AI versus human, but that we think AI plus human equals better human, right? And that's really my intention with this work, inshallah.
جزاك الله خيرا. أكرمك الله.
Thank you very much. Any other questions? I have a question I can ask maybe while people raise their hands. As far as usul.ai, you're essentially accessing it for tafsir.
Mhm.
And is that through an API or through a library of embeddings that they've generated on tafsir books?
It's through an API that they provide.
Okay.
And we chose to focus, like Usul.ai has thousands of books,
Yeah.
but again, we're taking this very incremental approach. So we made sure that Usul.ai functions specifically well for the particular Tafsir al-Quran bil-Ma'thur encyclopedia
great.
that we added. Yeah.
That's great.
They, of course, have their own vector embeddings and retrieval augmented generation system. I'm still experimenting with that, and it seems to be working pretty well. One of the concerns I have is, and this is something I've seen with Ansari too, is as you add more texts, the amount of irrelevant information that you have to sift through increases. And so the quality goes down. And so that's another concern I have with kind of adding more and more texts. And that is within, even with the sources that we have, that sometimes happens. And so you rely on the AI to be able to sort through and say, this is relevant and this is not relevant. But if the AI has to sort through more and more, its chances of getting it right are lower and lower.
We have had interest in the Shamili. Obviously, Shamili has around like 650 books for tafsir out of the 15,000 or so. It has actually a lot more than 15,000 that are in PDF format, as opposed to the 15,000 are more in text format that are available. And we've had an interest as an institute to take on a project for translation of the Shamila, which is a huge project. But we have developed a lot of tools and software to enable that for translation. And I'm wondering if those embeddings were digitized as Arabic language or English first, and or if the translation happens live as on demand.
Yeah. So right now they don't do translation. So if you search, even if you search in English, it will return the results in Arabic.
Okay.
But I think one of the things that I really like about Ansari as it is now is this on-demand translation.
Yeah.
But I'm very interested in the question of like, can we do bulk translation of the texts into new languages, and open up some opportunities. So as I mentioned, one of the people that I work with in the UK is a brother called Suhaib Said. He's an expert on the Quran, and we've been looking at translating some of the more complicated tafsirs, like Ibn al-Jawzi's tafsir, into English. And the results were surprising. We actually did a side-by-side comparison, and the AI was on par with human translation. So at least there is the potential there for high-quality translations.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, the quality has come up, but I think we just have to be context sensitive to the translation of the verses and the hadith, so that those can come as rags from a authentic human source. So mixing human translation for these alongside with the machine translation for everything else, I think would be the ultimate solution. Yeah.
Inshallah. Yep. Sounds good.
Inshallah. Dr. Mohammed Hamid Tai, تفضل.
Assalamu alaikum.
وعليكم السلام.
Thank you, Doctor, for your lecture. My question, first, I don't use Ansari before, but I will try, inshallah, to use it for Quran and other Islamic subjects. But I want to ask, is it like ChatGPT? When can I upload some files as a resources and request from it to analyze it and to find the result from these resources?
Right now, Ansari doesn't support uploaded files. It doesn't support audio either. So there are some limitations. Inshallah, once we have MCP up, then we'll be able to combine those two things together, just like you saw that I used Claude to combine Ansari with the learning tools that Claude already has. But unfortunately, right now, we don't support uploading of documents.
Thank you.
Jazakumullah khair.
Any other questions from the group? Great. Well, this has been a very insightful lecture. Thank you very much. This is amazing amount of work that you've done, and I know your leadership has meant a lot, given the understanding of all these the AI ecosystem and how we can really take these services and channel them to the service of Islamic resources and the Quran. And knowledge around Islam. So I really appreciate that. There is a lot of, I guess, one of the initiatives that some of the members of the Institute lead is around the dawah, and the role of these AI systems for spreading the dawah for Islam. I think is critical and key. I think the tools combined with the power of advertisement and power of spreading of this knowledge and awareness around the tool is important. And hopefully, if people in the audience or us as an institute can help you with that, we'll extend you some. There are some people within the institute membership who lead companies around advertisement, and so they can probably help spread the knowledge around the Ansari.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's the biggest question with non-Muslims and answering their questions is how do you get access to them? How do you get Ansari in front of them?
Exactly.
I think once you get Ansari in front of them, they'll actually find that it's pretty good at answering their questions. But the question is, how do you find them?
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. All right, inshallah.
Excellent. Really نشكر دكتور وليد قادوس على محاضرته الرائعة، وإن شاء الله نتابع معه أعماله في السنوات القادمة، ونتمنى له كل التوفيق والنجاح في تطوير أنصاري. ووضعت روابط على الشات لأنصاري بروجكت. So I hope يعني أرجو من الجميع النظر إلى هذا الأوبن سورس، المصدر المفتوح لأنصاري، وهناك أيضا الموقع للتفاعل مع الشات انجن، فأرجو Ansari.chat، فأرجو تجربته، وإذا كان هناك أي أسئلة يعني دكتور وليد is a member of our team إن شاء الله، of our يعني institute إن شاء الله we can reach out to him as needed إن شاء الله. Thank you very much, Dr. Waleed, and really appreciate all this great lecture. We have one more question from Dr. Hussein.
السلام عليكم دكتور وليد. أنا بدي أشد على يد الدكتور وليد and thank you very very much for a great service that you have offered to the Muslim community. I like Ansari very much. I trust Ansari 100 times more than I trust any of the other tools when it comes to using AI for information about Islam and about Arabic. By the way, I use it for Arabic. I am probably responsible for a lot of questions on morphology and syntax in Arabic.
Yes, it's very good. Like one of my favorite demo questions is do صرف of أتستبدلون or أو مخرجيهم, and it nails it really good. Like it's surprising how good it is at morphology and صرف.
It's an excellent tool. Thank you very much, and please continue.
جزاكم الله خير. Thank you very much.
بارك الله فيكم.
Thank you.
And thank you for your hospitality, Dr. Muhammad. May Allah bless you and bless
it's
your
our pleasure to
organization.
have you. Yeah, absolutely.
inshallah.
And let us know how we can support you. We haven't done enough, but I think we can do more, especially with the information and resources that the Institute has. Certainly not only limited to Ash-Shamila, but alhamdulillah, we have library of 1 million books that we can actually work on creating this knowledge resource base, for Ansari, but it needs a lot of thought and certainly careful handling, especially around translation, and especially around building a language model. Islamic language model is one of our goals as well in the future.
All right, inshallah.
Yeah, inshallah.
Excellent.
Thank you.
I look forward to talking to you more about that.
That's great. Excellent.
All right, inshallah.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
جزاكم الله خير، بارك الله فيكم.
السلام عليكم.
جزاكم الله خير.
ورحمة الله.
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته.
شكرا جزيلا، شكرا، بارك الله فيك.
جزاكم الله خير.
جزاكم الله خير، والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته.
بفضل الله تعالى. السلام عليكم.
عليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته.